Hello, my name is Anuska and welcome to my channel. Now, on this week's video, I'm talking all about what is your voice teaching you about you? And you might be thinking, what on earth is she talking about? So hopefully I'm going to explain a little bit more. It will make more sense by the end of the video. I'm also going to share some exercises at the end. So this is a really big topic and I think is absolutely critical if you actually want to seriously make any changes to your voice versus just work on the surface. So bear with me and hopefully it will all become clear at the end. So when clients seek me out, contact me, work with me, they normally have a perceived limitation, which is being reflected in their voice. So they may feel they lack confidence, they may feel they lack authoritativeness or assertiveness in meetings, presentations, podcasts, interviews, etc. And so this can show up in their voice. They may or may not be aware of all of this, but usually there is at least one thing that they've noticed. So it could be that the voice is weak or quiet or breathy. It could be that they have a lot of strain or tension or constriction in the voice. It could be that they're losing their voice frequently, or their voice is just incredibly tired at the end of the day or week. It could be that they mumble or they talk really, really fast. So lots and lots of ways this can go. That list is definitely not exhaustive, but just to give you some examples. Now, my philosophy as a voice coach is that, first of all, the voice isn't random, which is good news because it means you can do something about it. But secondly, that anyone can have access to a powerful, expressive and effortless voice, regardless of accent, if they are willing to do the work. And my little mini caveat on the end of that is, unless you've got any sort of major voice pathology or voice disease, which in most people is not the case. Most people have a healthy functioning voice. They just don't really know how to use it. It doesn't come with a manual, so they've never learned. Now, when I say do the work, it's not just the vocal exercises and the voice training side of it, which is obviously a big part of what I do, but it's also the inner work. Because the voice is an outer expression of our inner state. It's not random. And how we use our voice is so linked to how we feel about ourselves on a deep level. And often we're not aware, we're not conscious of how we really feel, because we live in a society, we live in a world where we're not encouraged to feel, we're encouraged to distract, push things away, not feel, not think, just keep going, keep moving, or just avoid. So I see that a lot with clients. They either just keep pushing through or they just avoid. But either way, you're not actually allowing yourself to connect to yourself and your voice. And ultimately, that is what is going to give you your true, authentic, powerful voice, as I say, regardless of accent. The good news is, if we come from this perspective, voice training and voice coaching becomes this almost incredible personal development project, because we learn so much about ourselves in the process that can be showing up in all areas of our life, to be honest, not just work and business. There's usually some areas where we see it more acutely, but it can show up in all areas of our life in different ways. So that's why this work is so, so powerful, because your voice is really revealing so much about how you really feel about the world, about yourself, about your life. So just as a really quick example, I mean, and this is something that I work with clients quite frequently on, is a client might come to me because they want to speak with more authority in a meeting, let's say, but their voice is actually presenting as quite sort of weak and quiet. So yes, on one level, I could absolutely do some work with them to build the muscle, the right muscle memory in the voice, and actually teach them how to produce sound in the most optimal, powerful way, which is absolutely what I do. But if I just do that with someone, if that's all you do, you'll just go back to your old habits eventually, or you'll find it hard to maintain a practice or maintain that new way of using your voice, because your voice habit has been developed to protect you and to keep you safe. And that's what we've got to look at. So yes, you can make incremental changes, but if you want the real transformation and you really want your voice to fully come alive and to fully express, then understanding what's actually at the root and the source of that is going to sort of free you, like really, really free you in so many ways. So an example I hear really frequently from clients is that they don't feel heard and they feel like they get talked over or ignored. And if they speak, it's like, you know, crickets. So we have to explore what's really going on there, because on some level, they don't want to be heard. And this is where, you know, really taking full responsibility for our life and our voice and what it's showing us is really, really critical. Because on some level, there's something about speaking up which feels unsafe to them, which feels a bit of a threat to them. Maybe, for example, they feel like if they were to speak up, they may come across as domineering or aggressive or too much or a show off, look at me, you know, all of these things. And then what happens is they do speak up or they just avoid it completely. But let's use the example of someone that actually speaks up, and then they create what they fear, because actually on some level, they don't want to be heard. Because there's some judgment, there's some fear there about actually being heard, about actually people listening to me. So this is where the shadow work becomes so important, because the shadow work is all about what we can't see. It's not what we're aware of. It's not limiting beliefs. It's something so much deeper. So what is in that example driving that voice that perceives it to be bad, to be listened to be noticed, to be heard? And this is so common in so many clients that I work with. So I think this is all part of our ego that doesn't want to shine too much and doesn't want too much attention, but we also do want a bit of attention and we do want people to notice us. So we're in this conflict all the time, but all we end up doing is creating what we fear. And then we find that people don't listen to us or they talk over us. So we push into the shadow what we have been implicitly or explicitly taught is not acceptable. And that's going to vary from person to person, from your upbringing, culture, family, all of that. Everything is going to be fed into that. Was it okay for you to speak loudly? Was it not okay for you to speak loudly? Was it okay for you to share your opinions? Or were you encouraged to keep quiet? So all of that is going to play into the voice that you create. So there's a couple of stages that I think are quite useful, first of all, because this is really an awareness exercise. We can't change anything until we're aware. So this is the first step. So first of all, next time you actually are in a situation where you're having to speak up or present, where you're feeling a little bit of anxiety around it, start to notice what feelings come up for you. What is the chatter in your mind? What are you saying to yourself? And just start to pay attention to that voice. It might say, you know, you're going to make a fool of yourself. Just be careful you don't say that because you're going to look stupid. People might criticize you. And what is the feeling that comes up when you actually start speaking or in the lead up to the speaking? What is the feeling in your body? And the first stage with all of this is to bring compassion to ourselves for where we are right now, because what we resist persists. So if we are rejecting, I shouldn't feel like this, I shouldn't feel like that, I shouldn't have these thoughts, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, we're just giving it more energy and it's not going to go anywhere. If anything, actually, it's just going to build like a snowball effect. So the first stage is to bring compassion and awareness to the feelings and the chatter in your mind and just allow it to be there. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't feed it, we don't buy into the stories, we don't give it energy, but we also don't push it away. And I think for a lot of us, me included, when we are feeling uncomfortable, what we tend to do is distract ourselves. We watch the TV, we put the radio on, we take the dog for a walk, we go and cook, or we do something, we go to the gym, we do something to take us out of our body and back up into our head. And this is all about being present in our body, present with ourselves when we are in those moments of speaking or about to speak. What is coming up for me, and bringing compassion. So then the second part of this is to really start to unpack what is being revealed in my voice that I have pushed into my shadow that I don't want to look at. And this can be very uncomfortable and takes, there's got to be a real desire to do this, because it's very easy not to do this kind of work. So first of all, notice what kinds of people trigger you who are speaking, specifically around speaking and using the voice, because that's what this is about. But you could actually use this about anything. So look at those people, notice what comes up in you, what feelings come up in you, what thoughts come up when you look at those people. I'm going to give you an example from my own life in a minute, just to show you how this might look. Are they loud? Are they domineering people that trigger you? And what is your like chatter around that? You know, what do you notice yourself thinking? Even if it's fleeting, even if it's like a microsecond, what do you notice that you think? Do you judge them as being too much, or attention seeking, or full of themselves? Like what's the narrative around that? Or are you triggered by people who don't listen and talk over people? I think we all know someone like that. Do you judge them as selfish or full of themselves? Or maybe you just think, well, they're just not interested in me. It's because I'm not interesting enough. Like, what's your narrative around it? So whatever it is for you, whatever that person is, or people, because I'm sure there's going to be more than one person that triggers you, and they probably have there's probably a similar theme. Just start to unpack what your narrative is around that. What do you feel? What's the story that you say around those people, even if it's a microsecond? It can also be the other side of the coin. So with the shadow, it's not only the sort of our darkness that we push away, but it's also a light as well. So it could be that you look at people in awe. You could look at people who are speaking and think, wow, they are articulate, they're powerful, they're authoritative. Look at all those people watching them and hanging off their every word. I could never be like that. But this is the big moment. Whatever you're perceiving in someone else, particularly if there's a strong emotional trigger in you, is a part of you. And it's just been rejected in you. It's just unseen in you for a reason, which is what we have to kind of explore, because on some level that is not safe, or that's not going to help you sort of survive in the world. So this is such a huge part of voice training, and you can hopefully start to see now that you're really limiting your voice unless you actually start to unpack this, because you're never going to allow yourself to have truly an authoritative voice if unconsciously you have this kind of judgment around people that have powerful voices. So it's not to beat yourself up, it's to bring awareness and compassion to yourself. So just to give you an example in my own life, I used to be massively triggered by really angry people. And as an example, I don't know if anyone's watched Gordon Ramsay as an example, because I love cooking. So I like watching any cooking programs, but I was so triggered when I used to watch him and the way he'd scream and shout and swear at people. And I was like, oh my God, I can't watch this man. This is awful. How can he be speaking to people like this? And it was obviously a part of myself that I was seeing. But on the surface, my persona was very sort of gentle and sweet and never showed any anger. But it was really this unconscious part of myself that was angry, but didn't feel it was acceptable to express. Now you're probably thinking, but what's that got to do with your voice? Well, it means that, what an angry voice is more powerful, is more dominant, is more revealing, is just bigger and louder. And when I started to kind of integrate that part of myself that had pushed anger away, I was able to access way more power, way more strength in my voice, because for me, anger meant yelling, shouting, being loud, and I had all this negative connotation around it. And again, it's not that you become that person, it's just that you don't reject it. And as my coach always says, it's like you take a spoonful of it. You don't become it, you just don't push it away. And so now I have to say I can watch Gordon Ramsay, and even if he's swearing at someone, it doesn't bother me like it used to. So I just wanted to give that example, because it doesn't mean that you are that. It could be something that you have completely pushed into your shadow, that you absolutely have no awareness whatsoever, and you've actually created a totally opposite persona. It can also be a part of you that you just can't see, and that other people be like, oh yeah, you're always angry. You're like, no, I'm not. So it can be a part of you as well, but often it's something that you have completely rejected. And ultimately, remember, this work is really about freeing your voice to become the truest self, the most authentic self, versus pushing half of ourselves away so we can uphold this kind of persona. So before I go, I just wanted to share that I have an online course, Empowered Speaking Online, which I will put the link below. This course has really been designed for professionals that have high demands on their voice. So people like fitness instructors, call center workers, teachers, lecturers, people that have high demands on their voice, but they've never been taught how to optimally produce sound. So it really is the fundamentals in voice production. And it's a 4-module course. You have lifetime access. I will constantly be updating it and adding things to it. It's really just sort of fundamentals in voice production. It's less about the sort of psychology, which I've talked about today, and more about how your voice sort of functions and how to get it out there in the most easy, effortless, powerful way, which I know for people like teachers and lecturers, particularly because I've worked with lots of clients like that, can be a real problem because they lose their voice frequently, they have to take time off work, etc., etc. So the course is $197 US. The link is below. You have a lifetime access. If you change your mind within 7 days, you can get full money back guarantee. So you really have nothing to lose. This is for people really, as I say, who perhaps aren't ready or aren't able to or ready to invest in private voice coaching, which is considerably more expensive. The private voice coaching, I do go into all of the sort of psychology and the depth, but because I'm working with people privately, obviously I have more time and I can tailor it to an individual. But if you just want some sort of general guidance and understanding of your voice, and as I say, you are someone that has high demands, this course could be actually what you're looking for at this stage. If you kind of watch some videos, but you still feel like there's bits that are missing. So I'll put the link below. Any comments, any questions, please do post below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single person who watches my videos, shares them, and subscribes. So until next time, I will see you on my next video.